Hey, everybody. Welcome to What Fresh Hell Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Amy.
And this is Margaret, and today we're talking about making it work with extended family.
And you and I know from extended family.
I was just going to say, in fact, I almost texted you before because I was like, you probably need some time to calculate because I sat and did my calculation. Do you know how many first cousins are in your family?
Oh, yes, it's very easy for me to say I am the first of 25 first cousins.
I'm I'm the I don't even know where I fall in the ranking, but I am the I'm probably around the middle of 24. You've got me beat.
And my children
That's
are
both sides of the family.
no, that's
That's only
just my
one
mother's.
side. See, no, I'm 25. I'm 24 total.
Yeah, I'm 25 and on the other side of my family, my dad's side, 80 second cousins. I mean, countless,
Yeah.
countless. And
Well,
then my
that's the
own
other thing
kids.
as my kids get sorry, as the cousins get older, now it's like that's 25 plus spouses 50, plus they've all had, 2 or 3 kids. It's
Oh
just
my gosh.
as Grandpa Billy Mack used to say, we've been begetting and begetting.
I was at a family wedding this summer, one of my many first cousins getting married. So fun. And like those, I look forward to those for the year and a half after you get to save the date, right? And one of my other many cousins said, well, if and when I get married, it's going to be a very small wedding. And I said, dude,
No,
like
it's
look
not.
around you. You can not invite any of your cousins, but if you invite us, it's 60 people before you invite one single friend.
For sure. I think my wedding guest list was like at 95 before I left family members.
Anybody that you weren't related to. And my own kids, are we have number 16 on the way in my, family, my brothers and sisters, because I also have a big immediate family. And, on the other side, they have 6 cousins. So they have, oh, what are they? That's like again, they have like 25 first cousins, but on the 2 sides. And, it has always been a pretty big part of their childhood for my kids to have cousins their age. They don't see them all the time, but we do make it a priority. We vacation together, we Thanksgiving and Christmas together, and it really matters.
It's so nice. My family cousin group on my side is older cousins. So my brother and I are 2 years apart, but we had our kids, I don't know, like 13 years apart or something. He started very, very young, and I, shall we say, did not. And so we have grown cousins and littles, which is really fun. Like my kids love hanging out with their big kid cousins. So
And they're
my
big
brother's
kids, like
kids,
mid-20s.
20s. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, then on my husband's side, we still have a 2-year-old, and that's probably the last cousin. I think we're done with the cousin reproductive
That's funny
services out
'cause in
here.
my family, it's, my kids are the bigger cousins, and they have yeah, we have a 3-year-old
That's
in
right,
my
'cause you're the
family, a baby on the
oldest.
way, because I'm the oldest, right? I have a brother who's, almost 2 decades younger than me, so he's just getting started with the babies.
It's yeah.
I
I
hope,
l
right? I'm like, "Bring them, like, have 20." I love nieces and nephews.
Yeah, yeah, it's really aunt is such a great job. I was an aunt for I'm trying to remember what the difference between the kids are. I guess probably about 12 years. So I was probably an aunt for 12 or 13 years before I ever had kids of my own. And let me tell you, aunt is the gig. That is a sweet spot. All the playing, all the family love, none of the responsibility. Um, Go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, we could just, brag for 45 minutes about how awesome our big families and all our, nieces and nephews and cousins are, but,
That would be an
sometimes there's a
entertaining episode. I'm sure people would love to listen to it, but
to how
that's not
great
what
it
we're here
is.
for.
Not just our
Uh,
personal experience, but, extended family looms large for better and worse, I suppose, sometimes.
we're going to start with a definition.
Okay.
A Extended families are simply a family unit that extends beyond past the nuclear family to include other relatives such as aunts, uncles, and grandparents.
Okay.
From lovetoknow.com, an extended family can also be called a complex family, joint family, or multi generational family. In most cultures, the core of the family is the nuclear family, parents and children, while additional relatives are considered extended. I will say that extended family also seems very much to be a euphemism for in-laws. So, like, that's not really what we're talking about
Mhm.
specifically.
I mean,
That,
they're
like,
part
people
of
will
it,
be
but
like, oh, my extended family can be difficult. That means they're talking about their mother-in-law, basically. Like, it's because really there are, as a married person, two sides of extended family. So we're talking about extended family being our extended past our own nuclear family of birth. So like our cousins, etc.
Yeah.
Extended family, your husband also has an extended family, and some people consider anyone in your husband's family your extended family.
Yeah, and it's funny because I do, we spend, a fair amount of time, like I was saying, with both of our extended families, and they do behave differently. They're culturally differently. It's different people. It's a Venn diagram that doesn't totally cross, even though, funnily enough, we're from the same hometown. It isn't like
Mhm.
this great aunt and that great uncle like know each other. Like they say hi to each other in the grocery store, but they don't socialize. But when we socialize with both sides, we enjoy doing it with both sides. There's a very different sort of level of closeness and showing up for the birthday party and being up to speed on what the extended family is up to. A greater sort of expectation of that on one side than on the other, which I
Well,
think can sometimes be a lot to
yes.
navigate when you're not used to it and you don't understand the rules of the new extended family that you are now part of.
I was just making a list for myself, not research based, of sources of conflict that happen
Okay.
within extended
All
families.
right. Walk me through it.
Different expectations about time that's going to be spent together, different traditions, families of different origins, different ways of raising kids, political differences, economic differences. I mean, I could go on and on.
Okay.
But
Yes.
let me light up your neural pathways for a moment, Amy, with some statistics,
Okay.
because I think this is really interesting. I think, extended family. Certainly, in my mother grew up in a two-family household in the Bronx, so she lived on. I don't remember which floor was which. She lived on the top floor, let's say, with her mother and father, sister and brother, and then the other part of the house was her mother's sister, that person's husband, and their kid. So they grew up together.
Mhm.
I think, especially for, immigrant families, this is much more traditional, is that people live together. But then as the generations go, things change and people separate more and more. And they don't tend to live in such close proximity to their extended family.
Yes. Yes.
Let me
Oh,
give you
this
some
Go ahead.
Let me give you some statistics, Amy. Over 55% of US adults say they live within an hour's drive of at least some of their extended family members.
So does that prove that we're moving further apart or that we're still kind of staying close together? Because to me, within an hour sounds close, but it isn't next door.
But it's only 55%. That surprises me.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
live
So
within an hour's drive of an extended family member?
I do. My sister lives like 20 minutes away, but that's it.
Right.
Everybody else is more than an hour
But
away.
but beyond that is more than an hour
Yep.
away. So
Yes.
when I lived in LA, forget like the sister who lives near you, because like take that out of the equation. Because I feel like if your family is like ours, you can always get one. But my
Right.
sister and
Doesn't
I
count.
lived together in LA, together actually sometimes, but even just like in the city at the same time. But we were 3,500 miles away from pretty much our next extended family member. And I think that separation is something that's kind of new. Um, Equal shares of Americans say they live near all or most of their extended family, 28%, or near some extended family, 27%. So that's just breaking down the
So again, that's
55.
half saying they live near all or most or some. All, most, or some
Right?
extended family have to, and then half don't.
Right. It's like what the expression is, the family seat. That's like one of those phrases that I say a lot, but I don't know what the word is.
I've
Do you know
never
the
said that
expression the
word.
family seat?
No, no, edify me. Like
Well, I can't
the
because I'm just
homeland?
speaking contemporaneous. Hold on one second. I'm actually going to Google it really quick and see if I can find it. Hold
Okay.
on a second. Amy, the family seat, sometimes just called seat, is the principal residence of the landed gentry or aristocracy.
I call it the seat. I didn't know what you meant when you
Just
said
call it,
family
you
seat. I
just
just
call
call
it
that the
the
seat.
seat.
Yeah.
The residence usually denotes the social, economic, political, or historic connection of the family within a given area. So, like, this is something that, like, Richies used to say back in the day, like, "Where's your family seat?"
And it
That would
was
mean,
East
like,
Egg? It was
yes,
like
your family seat, like, when your family came from it's oldie-timey, but it's something that we say jokingly, like, our family seat is in Nyack, you know? It's like it's very we use it jokingly. But our family settled in New York when they came from Ireland.
mhm.
I mean, one side in the Brooklyn and one side in the Bronx. My mom's family was in the Bronx and my dad's family was all in Brooklyn. Now, then we settled out of the city in one side of the Hudson River and the other side of the Hudson River. And so I think that, like, yeah, now people are all over the place in the family,
But
but, like, the family
it does
seat
start.
is, like, the idea of, like, if your family seat, you would say is Scranton, Pennsylvania, right?
It
Like, that's where
remains
your family's
Scranton,
from.
Pennsylvania. Yes, I have a funny story about that. So, yes,
I don't
my
believe you're allowed to use the word seat if you're from Scranton, Pennsylvania, but yes, you get my overall drift.
our homestead. Yeah, both my husband and I are from Scranton, Pennsylvania, home of the office. Um, and we went to I'm mostly Irish. My husband's like a third to half Italian. And last summer, we went on an extended family trip. Speaking of making it work with extended family, we went in a group of 13 people, some of my extended family and some of my husband's extended family all together. We went to Sicily and we went to the town where his great grandfather was born, this tiny town called Caltabolota. We met one of his cousins. So his mom, his mom's grandfather was born. I mean, this remote mountain town that you could only get to like by donkey when he would have been born.
Okay.
Incredible experience. Tiny little town nobody's ever heard of. Da, da, da. Come home to Scranton, my parents, my husband's parents, and they're, at the grocery store, whatever, telling people about their trip. And we went to this tiny town where this person was from, and it was called Caltabolota. And then everybody they were meeting in Scranton was like, wait, I think my ancestors are from Caltabolota. Well, come to find out in a couple of months after we got home that if you're from Scranton and you're Italian, your
You're from
forebears are
Cotabolota.
probably from
Yeah.
this tiny Sicilian town called Caltabolota. They all went to Scranton. And then what's kind of, sad about it is, of course, like, and then as soon as you get there, it's like, everybody stop talking about Caltabolota. Like, we're
This is Scranton.
right. We
We're
live in
making a
Pennsylvania
new
now. Right.
life
Like,
for
Ixnay,
ourselves.
Ixnay, and the Altabolota K. And so we're all like rediscovering, like, wait, like the dentist is also from this tiny town. Yes, because it was the family seat for Caltabolota.
The family seat
Mhm.
or right, like that traditional ethnic neighborhoods across the United States are exactly that way. Like
Yeah.
one guy from Cotabolota goes to Scranton and it's like, send for Nana, send for the sisters.
Right.
And then like, oh, wait, if you want to go to the US, there's friendly faces. You'll find them in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and
Mhm.
that's where they stay.
That they used to say on TV, you've got a friend in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And you do. You have
Oh,
lots,
it's
guys.
especially if you're from is it Cotabolota? That's what I keep saying.
Caltabolota.
Colta, like with like a
Calta,
baby horse?
Calta.
Oh, Caltabolota. Yeah.
Yes.
I have more statistics for you, Amy. We'll be right back. So we're going to talk about the conflicts that are inherent in extended families. So we don't want to do too many more statistics, but I do want to say, because I thought this was really interesting, people with the highest education levels are least likely to live close to extended family.
Yep.
And
Okay.
obviously, people with the highest income level are also less likely to live close to extended family.
Because income means choices and going away to college, right? And
Education and income
mhm.
equals choices. Adults living in rural communities are more likely than those in urban or suburban communities to live at least near some extended family. Like, of course, like you think of like the small town, like we're all here together.
Mhm.
And then like cousin Richard went off to college, but like everyone else is here.
Yes.
Whereas in urban areas, it's like, okay, we're here from somewhere else. I used to live in LA and now it's a generation away from this, but there used to be an expression, no one's from LA, right? You
Right,
could say to
right.
anybody, where are you from in LA? Oh, I'm from Seattle. I'm from Florida. I'm from New York. Like people came to California to seek their fortunes,
Right.
but no one's actually from there, you know?
Right.
And,
That's
that's
true in the Upper
changing
West
now.
Side too. I mean, I live in New
Right.
York City and everybody here is
Is
just
from
passing
somebody
through. Yeah.
somewhere else.
Started somewhere
That's
else and they
right.
finished up somewhere else. Or they grew up a block away. I'm gonna contradict myself, but yes, I also know people who, like, grew up on 23rd Street and now they live on 25th Street. It's in some ways the most villagey place of all.
Yeah, and so this is where we get into as we deal with extended family. Well, first of all, some people don't really deal with their extended family. So for some people, this is just their in-laws or their marital family.
Right.
Um, but these are the sources of tension. Like when people live different places and have different experiences and are from really different socioeconomic standards. Generally, your nuclear family, I mean, mom and dad make a certain income. They pass that on or share it with the kids when the kids are young. And then generally, the idea is that the kids do as well as better or better than the parents. Like there is a single economic and social reality to a nuclear family.
Yeah, although people would say, "Well, that's changing." Like there are statistics saying now for the first time people worry that their kids won't do as well as they did. I saw some interesting thing recently about how Homer Simpson that Homer Simpson could have the house they have on the street they have working in a factory is the most unlikely thing in the entire cartoon.
Right.
But it was true
Right.
back then. Right, back then in the land of the fictional land of the Simpsons. I think that's less true. That's getting
Yeah.
us off what we're saying. I mean, it just means that I think the idea that you pretty much do what your parents did and you live nearby and your life is kind of like them, that's less and less true.
Yeah. That's right. And I think the socioeconomic, um, realities for any given, like, family of 6, and this is kind of a little bit tied into what you're saying, is, like, you can have 6 kids, and one of them goes to work on Wall Street and becomes a billionaire, and, like, 2 of them are teachers in a small town, and one of them does, like, kind of okay in their plumbing business, and one of them has, like, really bad economic strife, right? Like,
Right.
the connections can get pretty frayed. Like, if you look at most families, people are doing really different there's no, what's the word? Like, commonality across an extended family. And so that makes for conflicts, resentments, bad feelings. You also have what you're dealing with, which is interesting in your own family and in your spouse's family, a whole historical family structure with whatever was going on that you don't even understand, right? Like,
Mm,
oh, great grandpa left great grandma for another lady, and they have this other kid who's not really recognized. And you're like, what the heck? Like, I can barely untie what's going on in my own life. And like, there's drama and trauma in the other generations that,
yeah.
like, and it's interesting, we talked about on our grudges episode, and I think it really applies in extended families. Like sometimes there's bad blood, and you're like, we just know there's bad blood. We don't even remember the origin incident here. We just know we're not allowed to talk to like cousin Susan for whatever
Right.
reason.
Right. I mean, it's complicated. It can be very complicated, but there is something about the the uncomplicatedness of the relationships. I guess I'm just talking about like my siblings or the way I see my kids interact with their first cousins on both sides. There's just a shorthand, and you cannot see each other cousins for 6 months, a year, 3 months, whatever it is. And I feel like they just fall right back into it. And they maybe like minorly squabble like siblings do, but there's just not as much stuff to fight about. And they just sort of, it's like siblings without the baggage almost,
It's
cousins.
siblings without the baggage, and it's friends with the ties. Like I was just
Yeah.
talking to somebody who was having friend drama between kids, and it's funny because my kids have same age cousins who we spent a tremendous amount of time with who live here. And it's like they can really fight with each other, but they can't not be together. It's like a sibling. The bond is like a sibling.
Sibling bond. Yeah.
Yeah, the bond is like a sibling, but the conflict is less. It's like you have your own family. I think cousins is such a great relationship. I was just with my girl cousins this week. I love cousins, and my kids have fantastic cousins, and It really is a special relationship, cousins.
You don't have to when I see my kids, like, there's a relaxation into it, right? They don't have to sort of show up and be like, "I'm the kid who's really good at kickball. I'm the kid who, like, jokes all day," right? They're not sort of trying on a personality. You can't get away with that when this
You can't keep it
person
up,
has known
it's
you your
too
whole
much
life.
time.
You can't keep it
Yeah,
up, it's too much time, and they wouldn't believe it anyway, and so I just see this unguardedness that my kids have with their cousins that they probably don't get to have at school.
I think that's right, and another thing that always interests me as my own family has evolved over, um, you know, now 14, 15 years, however long I've had kids, is that kids, when you say someone's family, and this may just be our tradition, but I feel like kids don't have a lot of follow-up questions, you know what I mean? There's been breakups and makeups, and we have different steps in the family and some sort of complicated historical relationships between divorces and remarriages and whatever happens to have happened in whatever segment of the family. But if I point to somebody and say to my kid, like, "That's your cousin Greg," they're like, "Yo, Greg," and, like, they're in, you know what I mean? Like, they're not like, "How did I get a cousin Greg? What is the
Right,
origin of this person?
right.
Like,
How am I
how
related
does this
exactly? No.
person fit into the—"
No,
They're
they
just
don't.
like, no follow-up questions. I'm like, "This person is your Aunt Jane," and they're like, "All right, let's do it, Aunt Jane." They're just and that's kind of a magical thing about kids because I do think as we get older, the conflicts, the separations, divorces, fights, whatever happens within our own extended families, I think it's been very magical for me to see how much my kids are ignorant to that. And thinking back about myself as an adult, we would get filled in on like, well, actually, so and so had this and this happened. And that's why we didn't see that. And I'm like, oh, I,
Right,
we were not.
right. You
And
can be
this
40
is,
and still learning that stuff.
I think that's a really good touchstone is like the drama in a family is generally optional, and the farther out in the extension it goes, the more optional it becomes.
Yes.
Like, your husband's drama is not optional to you, but your second cousin Sally's drama is completely opt-in, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
And I was saying it on a podcast recently, but I think about it all the time that my mother would often say that people in conflict don't feel secure enough in their closeness. And that's a reason why people have conflict because being in conflict is closer than just being like around each other with
Right,
no tie at
it's
all.
right, you're it's
It's
negative attention, but
bonding,
it's attention,
right?
it's bonding. Right,
It's
right, right.
like conflict bonds you to other people. And I think as families start to extend, sometimes there is this need for like conflict and gossip and yeah, and this is what's going on with them. Don't you think she saw this and whatever starts creeping in. And that is a substitute for closeness. And keeping that in mind has been helpful for me in terms of like, we can be close without this.
We have friends, good friends in New York City, they're South American, and, our kids have grown up together, and they will introduce if we're meeting some of their friends, they'll explain that our kids are their kids' primos or primas, and finally, like, looked up what it meant, and then it meant cousin, and I said to them, like, "Oh, that's so interesting, you're introducing them as, like, their cousins," and they said, "Well, like, for us, it is, it's like cousins, they're friends, it's more than friends, and then it's just a sort of thing you say when it's sort of lifelong friends," and I love that, and I think that, chosen family and the kids who are like cousins to your kids, if you are one of those half of people who lives nowhere near your extended family, who doesn't have extended family, who has an extremely complicated relationship with your extended family, which means you have to distance, I don't want to leave that out of the conversation. Like that means
Hmm.
all this fun stuff is not available to you. Like, maybe it is. You just have to look a little harder.
Right. That either that can be chosen family. And also, as you get into extended family, you can choose your family within the family too. I
Mm,
mean, if you have 40 cousins, and I do think that like family is a very specific kind of bond, and that I have that feeling of Like, if I go somewhere, like you say, you go to the small town in Italy, it's like, this is a cousin. Like, that means something that you're family and that those kind of bonds can be really, like, helpful and strong. And it could be that your cousin is your chosen family, or it could be that your cousin is like, "Yeah, we're gonna skip that cousin. That doesn't
Yeah.
actually work for us in our current." What's the line for the cable guy? Old Deluxe alert. The great Jim Carrey tries to befriend Matthew Broderick, and at some point, Matthew Broderick is just trying to get out of the relationship, and he's like, "I think I just have enough friends right now." And it's like, yeah, you might have enough cousins right now.
You
You
might
might
have
be
enough
all
cousins.
set. And I think that that the layers everything is better when you hold it less tightly, and extended family is so that way. Like, at
Yes.
any family, in-laws and your husband's family and your wife's family, it's just like, if it's too much, it's too much, but a little sprinkling can be magical.
And when the stuff hits the fan, right? Like
Yeah.
we had, I'm not going to give any details 'cause it's not mine to tell, but we had a true crisis in our extended family within the last year. And, some of the first phone calls were made to these extended family members that don't live next door, who we see at Thanksgiving, right? And the people who immediately dropped everything to be of service, to go and help, to take care of the kids, whatever, were were these extended family members. And I thought there was something in that too. Like you want those people who, when you call them, they're gonna come, and it doesn't matter, and we're not gonna ask questions, we're not gonna worry about who paid for what, and like we just do.
This is
And
what family does. This is
that's
what
what
a
family does.
good extended family
That's
does,
what a
and I
good
think
extended
that
family does. That's right.
yeah, it's not everybody, but we similarly had, somebody who got very, very sick from COVID in a somewhat remote area, and it turned out that my gosh, like, sister's husband's brother-in-law was a pulmonologist living in a completely different part of the country, and we, like, built the chain between those people by stepping on a million different, like, little family rocks, and I think that that's right. Like, the benefit of extended family can be so exponential in times of crisis, and I am from a big, crazy family, as is my husband, and the people are crazy, and everybody makes each other crazy. But when it gets real, I will say, like, if you ever have to raise the flag for help in our family, I could have 100 people in my driveway in, a day. And that there's something very, very magical about that.
Yeah, there sure is. Okay,
All
more
right.
on
Well,
extended families after this. One important benefit of extended family, if you have it, is childcare. Like in both my parents and my spouse's parents are caregivers for the younger cousins on the two sides of our family. In one case, full time, like the full time caregivers are the grandparents, and in the other case, like 1 or 2 days a week. But you also know, again, like somebody breaks a leg, like you have that caregiving possibility available to you. Huge. It's so huge. And it's so
it
nice for the grandparents.
and totally under valued or appreciated, I think, in general, until you don't have it.
Right.
We um moved back. I raised my kids in LA, and then I moved back to New York where my extended family was. And there is just a safety in, listen, you can build this community if you do not have extended family. My sister is in a kind of travel hellscape right now where she went to a wedding and her flight has been canceled 2 days coming back, small airport. Yesterday, they flew, I think she's like Minnesota. They flew from Minnesota back to New York, circled the New York airport. There were storms. They were running out of gas.
They were
They
terrible
flew
storms.
back to Minnesota.
Oh my God. Which is not close. I mean, that's
No, she did
hours.
like the whole trip. I mean, nightmare. And, I was on the phone with her and I'm like, well, I'll go. She lives down in Brooklyn. I'll go and watch the kids for the night. Turns out her neighbor's around. He's going to come. All fine. It all worked out. I was just overhearing a conversation among family members somewhere. And they were like, we're looking for somewhere to live. And they were probably in their 60s, maybe. And somebody was saying, like, really think about moving away from your kids, moving into a area where you're all by yourselves as older people, because being alone and needing help is the hardest because most people are willing to watch a 5-year-old. You know what I mean? They're like, "Oh, I wouldn't leave your kid alone," but that to as you get older, the need for, like, help is very serious, and it's not really like trading favors. Like, if your other friends are old, they can't really help you out, and you don't have a lot of, like, 35-year-old strong friends who can pick you up if you fall down on the floor, Like, it's and I thought, like, it's interesting. The problem with and I mean, I think this is a huge overall issue in society that, like, people are leaving their family groups, but then when it comes down to childcare and elder care and long-term health care for crises, that is the kind of stuff that only your family will do for you unless you're able to come up with money to do it.
Right. Right. I thought you were saying that somebody was encouraging older people to move away from their from their kids. You're saying
No,
the opposite of it.
I am saying the opposite. There may
Uh-huh.
be people who wanna move away from their
Mhm.
children. My parents may wanna move away from me, but I do think when it comes down to, as you start seeing the complicated situations that happen with older people who might not be ready for full-time care but need a lot of help, somebody who stops driving but doesn't want to move into a nursing home, like these kind of tricky situations. And what I see happening to a lot of my friends at this age is they are, sister lives in Philadelphia, other sister lives in California, mom who's still in Kansas is getting old, like, OMG, what now?
Right.
There's the only 2 options are someone goes and does it, or you end up spending a tremendous amount of money to get care that you may or may not even feel that great about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why villages were good, right?
The village was good.
My spouse grew up literally with one grandmother living next door on the right and the other grandmother living next door on the left.
Yeah.
And, it was kinda good for everybody. I see its benefits, and I say that as somebody who does who lives 100 miles away from with my kids now live 100 miles away from their grandparents. We see them a fair amount, but and I think we see our the good thing about extended family is I'm gonna give a shout out to, like, technology, right? So one of my kids is abroad right now. He's on a semester abroad in college, and his grandmother told me that she called him to say goodbye before he got on the plane because, of course, like and I share a little bit of this, idea too, like, well, they're in Europe, so you can't, like, talk to them unless you, like, got on the QE2 and went over there, like, they're lost to you, like, he's off the grid. Well, no, he's not, like, I FaceTime with them yesterday, he's sharing photographs, and he's also sharing these photographs with, all 4 of his grandparents, and so there's a way where even though he's farther away, he has more reason to be in contact with them right now because he has something new to show them every week, and he's a good kid, so he does it, and so even though he's a world away, like, he's, like, back in Calta Balota, but they're in more touch with him than they usually are. So, like, what it means to extend your family, I think there is room for this. Of course, somebody falls and breaks their hip, you do have to actually show up. You have to, like, be there. But there is other ways in which we can be there for one another and that we can cement these relationships that really are, Marco Polo, right? Or, isn't that what that app is called where you leave each other video
Yes.
messages?
I don't know
Things
if
like
people are
that.
still doing
I
Marco
know.
Polo,
Do we
but
say it's
yes,
still
you can
Marco
video
Polo?
each other. And I think and I'm glad you brought that up because I think this is really important. This is the kind of thing that is a family culture issue that I don't think we always think about and talk about, is that the value of family, whether or not you live close to each other. There's a great Frank Bruni op-ed, and it's called Tolstoy and Miss Daisy. And it's
Okay.
about his 18-year-old niece driving his 79-year-old father on a trip and getting from Georgia to New York. Like the dad lives in Georgia, and like the niece takes over, like driving the dad. And it's just a lovely, cute story. But it's like, whose job is this? And I think as we constantly have conversations on the podcast about like you can say whatever you want to your kids and you can read whatever books and like impart that wisdom to your kids. But your kids look to you to say, like, do we take care of the elders in our family? Do we take care of the people who fall down in our family? Like, do we, rise to the occasion of? And I think that it's something that I don't hear people talk that much about. And I haven't thought that much about, but, in I was talking to somebody in my family who lost a relative very young and very tragically. And that person was telling me that some of the parents from her kids' schools didn't want the kids to come to the funeral because it would be too upsetting for them. And it's like, I understand it. The kids were young, and it's like the idea that like suddenly somebody could die was very upsetting to them. But it's like, this is how we operate as a family. I think when we talk about the list of like who we want to be and how we want to be, that it's another important like star in that constellation. Like,
Mhm.
we're people who go bring the cousin a casserole. We're people who, and this can be the friends and the extended family of our lives, but how we show up for our extended people, whether they are our blood relatives or the people who we hold as family in our lives, your kids are watching that. And like, you're going to be the old person someday.
Be nice to your kids is what we're saying. Yeah.
And I also think a family culture is something that you can break. Like a family culture that gossips a lot meanly about all the other people in the family, that is something that you can be like, actually, our family does not participate in that. Like you can change the orientation of how certain things about your extended family don't work so well. And you can also lean in to say, like, it is a little bit, you have to captain your kids towards the wonderful experience of extended family. And then you also need to model like how to take the good and leave the bad with
Mhm.
extended family.
You take the good, you take bad, you take
Now
them
you're saying
both,
it. And
and there you
there you
have
have
extended
extended
family.
family, extended family. Amy, who could have solved it better than you rewriting the lyrics of the Facts of Life
Thank you.
theme song?
Goldilocks alert.
Goldilocks alert.
I landed it
Huge
like
if
Mary
true.
Catherine Gallagher. Yeah.
Land it. Nailed it. Friends, if you want even more What Fresh Hell, you can get it with What Fresh Hell Plus. What Fresh Hell Plus is our subscription. It offers a monthly bonus episode and completely ad-free listening to all episodes of the What Fresh Hell podcast. Amy's going to tell you how to sign up.
Well, it's very easy. You're just going to tap the link that's in the show notes for this episode, or you can always go to our Instagram bio. It's always in our Instagram bio. The last way to find What Fresh Hell Plus is on our website, whatfreshhellpodcast.com.
Thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Thanks, everybody.